Yes, we're there for, I think, coffee break 19 or 20. I don't know, but yeah, welcome, Doctor. And now I have to do it like very slowly. Dimitriadis. Yeah, that's right.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
perfect. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for our conversation.
You're in Brussels now?
Absolutely, yes. I'm in Brussels.
Yeah, and normally you come from Greece?
Correct. I come from Greece. I live in Serbia, in Belgrade, Serbia. But my professional work brings me in Greece, in Serbia, in Slovenia, and in Brussels as well.
Okay. Now, you are an expert in neuroscience. You're an expert in well-being at work. Now, can you explain neuroscience like in 1 minute, 2 minutes?
Well, if I'm going for an official definition, neuroscience is it's the study of the nervous system, which includes the brain, and the impact of this to our behavior and emotional and mental states. So that's kind of a formal definition, but in essence, I became fascinated with the study of the human brain for 17 years now. I think it was around 2004, 2005 that professionally I devoted myself to applied neuroscience because I understood that neuroscience provides the best answers, Jim, compared with other sciences. And if you look historical thinking, human thinking in historical terms, neuroscience provided to me the most clear and trustworthy answers on who we are, how decisions are being made, what drives our behavior, what makes us who we are. That's what neuroscience is in a nutshell for me.
Yeah. And on the other hand, you don't look like a really irrational person.
Well, I hope so, because I come from this school of thought, if you want, in neuroscience, that we say rationality is a subsystem of the brain. The ability to think rationally, to analyze, to stop and consider plans and put cost-benefit analysis is a great resource of the brain, but it is a supporting resource of the brain. It's not the main one. It's not the only one, absolutely. And lately, we think it's not even the main one. It's a great support resource in the human brain. So absolutely, I'm on the emotional side of things.
Yeah. Now, sometimes we say like we all have three power center: the brain, the heart, and the gut. What's your favorite one?
So if for me, it's the brain and the gut. The heart is a little bit urban legend. You know, the heart is great. It pumps blood, fantastic. But and of course, as everything in our body is connected, huh? Don't let's not be separatists that everything is in isolation. No, the whole system has to work very well together. Okay, but it's if you look at where neurons exist, it's a very high concentration of neurons in our brain, 87 billion neurons, and the second biggest concentration of neurons in our body is actually our gut. So the second brain is the gut. So brain and gut. That's the two things, and of course the whole nervous system with all its reach within our body.
Yeah. I think that the most wisdom is in the heart, but that's not another discussion.
This is an interesting discussion because most of the times people, when they refer to the heart, probably they refer to emotions or intuition.
Mhm.
And modern neuroscience has relocated these things from the heart to the brain, the nervous system, and the gut. So if we talk about the semantics, what does it really mean? As I already said, I'm fully on the emotional part of what makes us who we are. And I consider emotions extremely intelligent. Not emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is different, and the intelligence of the emotions is different thing. I'm talking about the intelligence of the emotions. They're extremely intelligent, and our unconscious is extremely adaptive and intelligent. And at the end of the day, it makes us who we are. With a great support from rationality. I don't want to disregard this. Fantastic, but it's a support mechanism.
Yeah. I saw you talking about neuro HR and neuro leadership. Can you explain like neuro HR?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for asking me this. So my way into neuroscience was neuromarketing because my background my bachelor, MBA, then PhD was heavily on consumer behavior and brand strategy. So a lot of psychology. And around 2005, 2004, 2005, as a consultant, brand strategy consultant, then as a marketing academic, I got tired about the old leadership, the old materials and educational theories that we were using. So if you take the book Consumer Behavior, half of these things, even more, I could not trust. Actually, I lost my ability to believe in the things I was teaching to my students and, of course, to my clients, applying as a consultant. And I realized that we really don't understand human behavior. We claim we do. We have a lot of theories, but marketing success will, for me, like 50-50. Maybe it will be successful, maybe not. Actually, there's a famous phrase by a guy called Wanamaker from the 19th century. He said 50% of the money I spent in advertising is wasted. I just don't know which 50%. Okay, so it was always more luck, and I needed more science. And the science that convinced me that the answers are there was neuroscience, because I saw later creating my own labs and having measured more than 7,500 brains from 25 countries now. I saw that neuroscience going behind the mask of conscious thinking, of awareness, and looking more inside on the real raw brain reactions, I could predict in a much higher degree, much more accurately, the buying decisions of customers and their buying behavior. Now, in companies, if you want to see trends, you look at marketing. And then if you want to see what HR will do, look what marketing is doing today, and HR will do a few years later. It has been like that because marketing is in the stress of bringing business. So, of course, marketing will immediately innovate. Things like customer experience. Now we have employee experience. We talked about customer loyalty. Now we talk about employee loyalty. So external social media. Now you have internal social media. So everything that marketing embraced, HR is embracing. So the same with neuromarketing. Marketing embraced neuroscience. End of 90s, beginning of 2000. First books, first companies, first academic studies on neuromarketing. Now HR is doing the same, is utilizing neuroscientific technology, meaning electroencephalogram, eye tracking, emotional voice analysis, emotional face analysis, heart rhythm and pulse, and something that's called galvanic skin response, and all these neuroscientific tools that marketing applied to customer brains, now HR is applying to employee brains. So neuro HR is a new way of diagnosing, examining, unlocking the employee and understanding better, of course, the employee brain. Electroencephalogram, 5 minutes in front of a laptop, you get a score on your empathy, capacity of your brain, resilience, and other stuff. No need for questionnaires, no need for lengthy interviews. This is what neuro-HR is. And this is the hardcore definition of neuro-HR, utilizing neurotech and neuromethods for understanding and engaging better with the employee brain. That's the hardcore, the research definition. There is another one, which is let's use the principles. Even if you don't own electroencephalogram, let's use the principles of what we know about the human brain, and especially with modern studies in corporations of how the brain responds, in order to design spaces, structures, policies that they are brain friendly. Because the main aim of applying neuro to business is to rethink the way that we conduct our everyday relations, to create a more brain friendly situation, to see the world from the brain's point of view and try to create a world which is much better for the brain.
Yeah. Now I think, and it's not I'm thinking, but it's a study showed that only 13% of the employees in Europe are engaged. So I think the loss or the waste in in companies is like even bigger than in marketing. You mentioned like 50%. That means like 87% of waste is there. How can you
Absolutely.
measure can you measure the engagement of employees like on a neuroscientific base?
Absolutely. And Jim, this is what fascinates me in neuroscience. Many of the things that we discuss in companies, not only companies, in education, school, our kids, in our society, as citizens, many of the things that are still open philosophical discussions are actually being answered by neuroscience in a very robust research way. But this knowledge from science has not yet reached the people that should apply it every day, like companies, CEOs, HR. We talked about neuro leadership. My first book was Neuroscience for Leaders. So I went actually quite deep in the subject of leadership and neuro HR. So indeed, neuroscience can measure engagement. Indeed, neuroscience can reveal many aspects of who we are, how we behave, how we engage with ourselves, with work, with others. So indeed, there are specific protocols, specific tools, and specific data points that we can use within companies to reveal these issues in a very reliable and scientific way. And that's our role. This is what we need to embrace as modern business leaders. We need to embrace new ways, fresh approaches, and especially, and that might come as a surprise to many of our listeners, science. Finally, science has reached management. Because if you think about it, management, marketing, HR are a little bit, soft areas of business. Absolutely not. There is hard evidence of what we can do, what can work, and how we can improve.
Now, if I understand it, you want to link, and it's not you are doing it, but you link like the brain with the body. And that is like a translation of the emotions that are in that employee, right?
Right. So the science of emotions is as complex and controversial as studying quantum physics and quantum. And I would say quantum mechanics even is more agreed a part of general science than emotions. There is indeed a big scientific battle at the moment on defining emotions. There is old school thinking, middle school thinking, and fresh. So it's very difficult because in everyday language we use the word feeling and the word emotion in the same way. But is it the same phenomena? Is an emotion different than a feeling? So if I feel angry, if I feel maybe motivated, is that the same as to define what an emotion is in the brain? There is a big debate at the moment. I belong to a school which says that emotions are specific neurophysiological responses of the brain in specific systems, which at one level and in one way, they sometimes become also known. And the known, the aware, the conscious part is what we call feelings, and more specifically, emotional feeling. Because there are feelings that are not emotional. When you feel hungry, that's not an emotional thing. It's a feeling. You still get a signal from your body that something is happening. When you feel pain is not an emotion, but it's a feeling. So you have emotional things, you have non-emotional things. We call them homeostatic. It helps you to sustain your organism alive. Okay. So something is happening in the brain between input and output. Something is happening in the world. It comes through my senses as input. My brain has to analyze what's happening, to apply some protocols, and an output has to be produced, a behavior, a movement, an action. And emotions are basic ways by which the brain, when receives a stimulus, designs a response. Mm-hmm. And all this is happening very fast and in a very unconscious way. But sometimes, I said, some of these, in some ways, also become sensations in the body, a feeling, you feel it. And this is, for me, and for this school of thought that I represent, a different phenomenon than what we call an emotion. Okay, but indeed, to go back to exactly what you asked,
yeah,
we measure. Just to give you a very short, we indeed try to listen to the brain and the body.
Yeah,
and when we listen, the brain and the body speak all the time. They talk. They give signals all the time, which are most of the times so fast and so fleeting. They're very unconscious. And if through sensors, various ways, we capture what the brain and the body is telling us, not only we can understand better what motivates me, we can have early signs of things like burnout and other negative emotional and mental states that have a negative impact in my performance and my life in corporations.
Yeah. Now, if you listen to these emotions, what are the main emotions you are measuring, and what is like is that fear, and what's the opposite? Is like excitement? Is that the opposite of fear?
So there are many models of emotions. There is not one model of emotion. One, which is called the wheel of emotions, has exactly the one emotion, the basic emotions. It has a number of basic emotions, 8, and each emotion has its opposite. You know, according to this model, what is the opposite of fear? You will not believe. It's anger.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes sense because if you look at totalitarian regimes, first they make you feel fear. Oh, these bad people will come to conquer us. And based on the fear, the answer to the fear is, so we need to kill them first, so to make you angry. So actually, the wheel of emotions model says that the conquering fear is not happiness, is not a positive emotion, is another negative emotion. And also it makes sense because negative emotions are more than positive ones. And this, evolutionary speaking, you understand why? Because avoiding being killed comes first than being happy with my friend. So if I go out of my cave and I see my best friend, say, yeah, my best friend, and I see a car or you know, a bear coming to eat me, I need to give priority to the bear coming to eat me. So negative emotions and negative motivation is stronger and more it has more variety in the brain than positive emotions and positive motivation.
Yeah. Now, you have the employee who is feeling something. The employer wants to know what the employee is feeling because they know the effect of the emotions on like the business result. Now, the big question is that employee has to give like the permission to the employer to use these data. Am I correct? Yeah. The main thing there is like trust. I think that's a very difficult situation. When I talk to employees, like at least 70% of the companies, trust is not there. How you will handle that?
So in Brussels, I'm involved in a major new project which is called Wellbeing.ai. And we are developing a cutting-edge global solution for measuring these things in companies without the need of an electroencephalogram, much more naturally, seamless within my working experience, mainly through the camera, your webcam, collecting emotional facial data and eye tracking movement patterns. You know that by how your eyes move, we can say if you are under stress or not. It's unbelievable what science
Are
can
you
do.
scanning me?
Not yet, but you didn't give me your permission when you did. I understand. So the idea is exactly as you said, to listen to the body and the brain, what they say. And first, I would say empower the person, empower the employee. Because when the employee will feel down, it will be too late. So we need to help people, empower them to have finally scientifically robust data of what's happening with them. Absolutely, as an employee myself, I would love to have this kind of ability to collect data that before they didn't even exist within the sphere of understanding of commerce. They were not even in the radar. But as we said, science has the answers. Okay. Now, what about the company? First of all, it's very important to understand that, especially the solution that we are developing, does not provide to the company your individual scores. That's absolutely a no-no. It's not even in the system. You get as a user your personal score. but the company is getting aggregated results to see a whole department. So there is no, it's in legal terms, in of course protection of data terms, in the permissions given, no personal results are revealed to nobody, are not available to nobody within the company. So the trust that you said, which is a very important issue for buying in such solutions, it has to be built from the very beginning in very solid grounds. So company receives aggregated results, like my marketing department, emotions maybe are not as, or my very actually recent, because we already have this data, sales departments, maybe their well-being is and their emotions are lower and not as positive as maybe you will be surprised. In accounting, very, very high well-being score, not so much in sales, marketing, and HR. Marketing, sales, HR. Human-based departments. When departments deal with people, it's emotionally much more difficult. When the department deals with accounting, numbers, or IT, we see higher scores. But that's the important thing, that trust has to be built, and trust has to go beyond blah, blah, beyond words and arguments. It has to be built into the system, privacy, permissions, and the absolute control to use the system in the way that fits your needs when and if you find it appropriate.
Yeah.
So, there's even studies with biometric measurements in companies. But when I say biometric, please, many times the word biometric leads to identification, like to identify through your fingerprint, etc. We're not talking about this. We talk about emotions detection technology. Actually, it's called emotions AI. Yeah? That's the official term. So there has been studies in companies to show if people would accept it under what conditions. And you will be surprised to find out that the trust to the company did not correlate to the trust to the solution. So if I trust the company or not, it was not so important. What was important is my personal feeling and understanding of being improved by the specific solution. And this is why I focused so much in the empowerment, the permission, the putting the user in the driver's seat, and tangibly demonstrating and proving so. No blah blah, no just emails, but being built into such systems. Otherwise, you are very right. If people are not convinced, if the people don't trust the system, there will be a problem. You know what is also amazing? That people all around the world have already sent emails to the project wellbeing.ai, www.wellbeing.ai, by the way, whoever wants to check it, saying, hey, I think that my well-being is very, very low. Can you help me? So, we really think about, should an employee think I need it or not? But as every introduction of an innovation, it has stages. There are people that need it. It's not a luxury. Great. Yeah, it would be good to have. Especially after the pandemic, and the numbers, burnout is even more. And even before the pandemic, 2019, World Health Organization came out and recognized for the first time burnout, anxiety, and depression as work-related symptoms. First time. And this was before the pandemic. Now, with the pandemic, all these numbers have become even worse. So my personal, and I think I share the sentiment with my team, is that we are here to help, to empower, to improve, and not to provide something that is absolutely needed, rather than it's something good to have. I think that we're changing the eras, Jim. There is this professor in Columbia University, Ruth McGarth. She says management went through 3 eras. First, it was the era of execution. When first companies were being built and first factories, industrial revolution, we had to achieve things. Then we went into the era of expertise, because companies, simple production units became very complex, very dynamic. We needed to create amazing expertise, sometimes inside, sometimes you pay very much external consultants. And now she says we are moving to the management era of empathy. And I think she's right. And I think that many people globally, especially after the pandemic, talk about empathy. And empathy is one of my favorite topics. I publish on empathy. I do studies with electroencephalograms on empathy. I'm really fascinated with the empathy phenomenon in our brain and bodies. And I think that based on where the world is now, means extensive competition, war on talent. It's not easy to find the people you want, and even if you find them, they have options, the good ones, to live and go all around the world. Okay, the uncertainty, pandemic, the war in Eastern Europe. You need, as a company, to understand that what is your role with your people. And I'm not talking in a philosophical, moral way. I could, and maybe I should, talk about the morality of empathy. But I'm talking about the business sense of empathy. That everything that we know about understanding, embracing, engaging, and motivating our people to achieve their true potential in companies is what makes us different. I usually teach the case of Zappos, the online retailer, and Tony Xie, the late, unfortunately, he died young, CEO, that he opened an online retailer of shoes. No USP, no difference, a red ocean market. But he said, I will make a difference only by creating a corporate culture that it's based on the things we're discussing: empathy, engagement, shared values, happiness. His book is called Delivering Happiness, Happiness. And somehow the internal culture based on all these things spilled over to customers. And that's the magic of modern business. There is no any more separation between your internal culture. That's what Tony Xie used to say in most of his interviews. There is no divide wall between internal and external anymore. You cannot be double-faced. Your internal culture is your external brand. And I think the business sense of focusing on empathy, on care. The CEO of Microsoft, he said, the new currency, care is the new currency. Care. It's not a philosophical discussion. This is what your people need at this moment to become the best that they can be. And if they become the best that they can be, your company will be also the best that it can be.
Yeah. Now, I have one last and I think nasty question for you. The technical stuff you will show, you will be present at the Happiness at Work conference. So there you will show like kind of a mock-up of what you are measuring, like that people can see like what kind of do you measure, like eye movement, whatever, like blood pressure, whatever, these elements that you can show them like really in life. Now I have one question. Like last week I read an article in Forbes. 98% of the HR managers, they are showing signals of burnout. Now, you bring a tool into a company that will measure like all the problems of these employees. Now, if I'm an HR director, manager, whatever, and you come and you try to bring in your tool in my company, and I know that it will bring like a lot of work to solve the root cause, do you think I will get your tool like in my company? Yes. Yes or no? Because I'm like, as an HR manager, I'm killing myself if I bring in your tool.
This is such an important question. I hope we have another half an hour to discuss it. But you're totally right. Yeah, we already, through our own data, through the platform that we're developing, we already know that HR, as I said, you remember sales, marketing, HR, they're the departments, the professions with the lowest well-being scores within companies. Mm-hmm. So indeed, the pandemic was a double-edged sword for HR departments. From the one hand, they became more strategic, more important. CEOs discovered that HR is more important than just payroll and benefits, that they have an important seat in the board and a strategic role to play for keeping the best talent, but also keeping the morale and productivity of the employee high. So fantastic. But on the other hand, this brought, as you said, a lot of work. HR departments are overworked. So two simple ways to maybe deal with this. First, every new system, like the one we're working on, has to be absolutely brain-friendly for the HR department. So not only brain-friendly for the people, but brain-friendly for the HR department. This means very intuitive, very simple, very direct and easy to use. Absolutely. That's let's say the operational answer to your question, but there is a strategic one as well. And there is this problem in marketing also. It's not only in HR, which is we need all of us. And thank you for bringing this up. And maybe it's a point also to discuss in the conference. You mentioned. How do we integrate information from all the solutions and the data points we have in companies? So the HR department is doing engagement surveys, happiness surveys, leadership surveys. They have performance discussions and evaluations. They have big data, behavioral data, churn rates, absenteeism rates, people, how many people ask for psychological support. So there is so much data coming in from different tools. I think all of us as an industry, we need to discuss about compatibility of data and especially systems that are easy to plug in and provide easy to understand and to act upon information. This integration of data, I think, is one of the most important topics for every professional within a company, especially HR and marketing.
Okay.
And I'm committed to participate in such conversations. It's a very important conversation.
Yeah. So, and if I ask you to take one measurement as a KPI, which one would it be?
Now, this is like asking me which of my kids is my favorite. There are comparative studies that show very clearly the more data points, emotional, neurometric, biometric, you combine, the higher the degree of accuracy. This is why in wellbeing.ai, we combine eye tracking, face, voice, gradually a heartbeat and pulse and all this. And we have other ideas. We even have questionnaires, highly standardized, because I think it's in the richness of data that the truth exists, not in isolation.
Yeah. So for the people watching, if you want to meet Dr. Dimitriadis, come to the conference 28th of June, and he will be there with wellbeing.ai and their tools. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm, and let's meet in June.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.